Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to be going through 5 unsung horror actors. 5 actors that appeared in a number of horror films, did a great job, but for whatever reason or another never quite get the recognition that perhaps some other actors do. So 5 unsung horror actors, who are they? Let's find out. In at number 5 we have Jeffrey Combs. Now Jeffrey Combs gives one of the greatest horror performances in my opinion in 1985's Reanimator as Herbert West. He's such a captivating performance in that movie, and he manages to be both kind of smarmy and cowardly, yet really kind of forceful and strong in his convictions. And I love the level of commitment he has to his macabre work in that movie. You really get a sense that this guy will live and die for the crazy stuff that he's doing within Reanimator, and he's so funny and kind of sort of cocky at the same time as we go through that film. So good in that. Never quite feel that he got as meatier role as he did in other movies besides Reanimator, which is a shame because for me he more than proves his acting worth in that movie. But this From Beyond, which is probably his next most popular movie, which was a good one. Castle Freak, the sort of gothic full moon movie. The Frighteners, where he gives a wonderful kind of cowardly, neurotic performance. He's so good in The Frighteners. The underrated Faust. And I recently saw him in the Onyx the Fortuitous movie, where I didn't actually recognise him straight away. But he always gives these just kind of really inspired, creative performances in his movies. He always brings something, and I always enjoy it when I see Jeffrey Combs' name pop up in a film. And he can play anything from a really good leading man to just bit parts here and there and secondary characters. And he just always brings a rather kind of unique energy to his roles. Now I put him as number 5 because I do think Jeffrey Combs does get a degree of recognition within the horror genre, as he rightfully should. But he's just never come across as being seen as a horror heavyweight, if you will. But he's consistently reliable, and as I say, really does bring a uniqueness to whatever he's in. So in at number 5 we have Jeffrey Combs. In at number 4 we have Tom Atkins, and similarly to Jeffrey Combs, does get quite a bit of appreciation and fanfare, but has never really been considered in the upper echelons of kind of horror actors or performances, despite being in some great movies. And Tom Atkins kind of always nowadays seems like the cool granddad of horror. He does talk a lot about his movies and always seems kind of positive and upbeat about them. Just seems like a fun guy to be around. And he's done some great leading roles. Of course, there's Halloween 3, which, love it or hate it, I think you've got to agree, he does give a great performance in that one. And of course, Night of the Creeps, for me, one of the greatest kind of B-movie horror protagonist roles you'll ever see. He's truly iconic in Night of the Creeps. He's also great in supporting roles in Maniac Cop. He gives a good gritty performance in that one. He's got a good bit part in Escape from New York. And even has time to do some non-horror with things like Lethal Weapon. Recently, I think most recently saw him in Trick, and he was great in that. Great to see him still doing the rounds when it comes to movies. But yeah, he seems to be someone that really embraces the horror genre and the work that he's done. He appears at numerous conventions and documentaries and things like that. And as I say, always just seems kind of positive about the horror genre and the movies that he's been in, which is fantastic to see. So in at number 4 we have Tom Atkins. In at number 3 we have Al Cliver, or to give him his real name, Pierluigi Conti. And for me, I came across Al Cliver very early on when I first saw him in Zombie Flesh Eaters, and that was one of the earliest horror films that I remember seeing and really having an impact on me as a kid. And so at the time I was kind of very familiar with Al Cliver. He was a kind of a mainstay name in my house, and it wasn't until I got a bit older and the years went on and I watched more and more films and realised that he was quite an elusive character. You didn't see him in many other things, but he has been in other movies. He's been in a Jess Franco double bill. He was in White Cannibal Queen, Franco's attempt at a cannibal movie, and Devil Hunter, one of the most bizarre video nasties you'll ever see. He's also in Touch of Death, another kind of low-key Lucio Fulci movie, and Apache Woman, which was a western, so had a bit of range there. But yeah, I always enjoyed seeing him in the few movies that I saw him come up in. And interestingly as well, the dubbed voice that he had in Zombie Flesh Eaters also appeared in a number of other Italian horror films. So there'd be kind of a strange sort of connection there whenever I'd hear that voice in other movies. It always reminded me of Al Cliver. And yeah, I just thought he was a cool guy in whatever he popped up in. Nowadays, apparently Al Cliver lives out in Bali and owns a series of holiday villas. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to go over there and hang out on the beach and talk to Al Cliver about his horror movies. I'm sure he'd love that. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So in at number 3, we have Al Cliver. In at number 2, we have Lance Henriksen. Lance Henriksen, in my opinion, is one of the most underappreciated actors in Hollywood. He can pretty much do anything. He's done leading roles, bit parts, he's been in big Hollywood movies, small independent horror films, TV. Put Lance Henriksen in and you know you're going to get a good performance. The guy just comes across as a complete worker and grafter within the world of cinema and just churns out a number of movies and pretty much gives a great performance in all of them. Of course, his most famous role is probably Bishop in Aliens, but he's also got a couple of great leading roles in things like Pumpkinhead, which is a fantastic movie, and The Horror Show, where he gives a really good gritty performance as a detective being haunted by an executed criminal. You also got him in Near Dark, where he gives a really good sinister vampire performance. Omen 2 and Man's Best Friend, which was excellent. And in more recent years, I've seen him do a number of Bigfoot movies, which is really great. Movies like Abominable, Sasquatch, and Sasquatch Mountain. So yeah, a whole lot of Bigfoot stuff going on with Lance Henriksen in more recent years. And apparently he's a big artist as well. So as well as making movies, he is big in the world of art and does a lot of kind of clay sculptures and things like that, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, whatever Lance Henriksen is in, he always gives a great performance. He can be a really good, steadfast, good guy, or a real kind of sinister, kind of sharp-looking bad guy. He's got a really good range, and yeah, I enjoy him in everything that I see. But never seems to get any credit in the world of movies or Hollywood, which I think is a shame. So in at number 2, we have Lance Henriksen. And in at number 1, the most unsung horror actor, in my opinion, is Michael Ripper. The absolute man when it came to supporting roles and bit parts in British horror cinema. And if you've seen a Hammer horror film, chances are you've seen Michael Ripper on screen. He was a regular mainstay in Hammer horror films from the 1940s all the way through to the 1970s. And his list of movies reads off as a seriously impressive resume. Movies such as X the Unknown, The Mummy, Revenge of Frankenstein, Brides of Dracula, one of the most underrated Hammer horror films, Plague of the Zombies, Curse of the Werewolf, Scars of Dracula, just to name a few. But if you were making a Hammer horror and you needed anyone to play an innkeeper or a barman, Michael Ripper was absolutely your man, and he appears in more films than I think people realise. Michael Ripper passed away in 2000, but his British horror cinema legacy lives on, albeit very quietly, unfortunately. So in at number 1, we have Michael Ripper. So there we go, guys. That is 5 unsung horror actors. Let me know what you think about that, and if you agree. If not, let me know some of the actors who you think are underrated when it comes to the world of horror. I'd love to know. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.